Richard Ramirez, a man who didn't hide behind a mask, but wore his darkness openly, a man who walked through Los Angeles like a shadow, breaking into homes, slipping through windows, bringing with him a violence so unpredictable that people started sleeping with their lights on and locking their windows in broad daylight. To some, he was the Night Stalker. To others, the man without fear. To himself, he believed he was chosen. But Ramirez wasn't born a monster. He was shaped through trauma, indoctrination, violence, and a fascination with death that began long before he ever stepped into a victim's home. Today, we enter the mind of a man who didn't just kill, he terrorized an entire city. The question isn't how he became a killer. The question is, how did he become a killer who felt no fear and no remorse? Childhood. The making of a nightmare. Richard Ramirez was born in 1960 in El Paso, Texas. His childhood was a breeding ground for psychological fracture. A father with explosive rages who beat him regularly. A mother who worked with toxic chemicals while pregnant with him. Violent seizures that affected his brain development. And worst of all, an older cousin, Miguel, a Vietnam veteran who showed Ramirez photographs of mutilated women he had tortured in war. Miguel didn't just glorify violence, he taught it. He trained young Richard in military-style stealth, how to move silently, how to break into homes, how to stalk without being seen. One day, at age 13, Richard stood in the room as Miguel shot his own wife in the face. The trauma didn't break him, it fascinated him. This was Ramirez's psychological foundation: violence as pleasure, murder as power, death as a story told directly to him. His childhood didn't just damage him, it programmed him. Adolescence, drugs, darkness, and spiritual corruption. As Ramirez grew older, the fractures widened. He became addicted to LSD and cocaine. He slept in cemeteries. He developed a deep obsession with Satanism. He broke into homes for the thrill, not for money. And the seizures continued, pushing his mental state further into instability. While most teenagers search for identity, Ramirez searched for darkness. He didn't believe in God. He believed in permission. Permission to break rules, permission to hurt others, permission to embrace the parts of himself the world feared. The world saw a troubled teen. Ramirez saw himself as chosen by darkness, and his actions began to follow that belief. Early adulthood, the shadow that walked among us. By his 20s, Ramirez had moved to California. He drifted between hotels, bus stations, and abandoned buildings. No job, no stability, only impulses. But he developed the traits that would make him terrifying. Nocturnal behavior, compulsive breaking and entering, sexual sadism, extreme impulsivity, fascination with torture, total lack of empathy. Unlike Gacy or Bundy, he didn't create a public persona. Ramirez didn't need a mask. His power came from anonymity. He blended into the night, a thin, silent figure with a shoebox full of stolen guns and knives. To the world, he was invisible. To himself, he was unstoppable. Escalation, the city that lived in fear. Ramirez's crimes erupted suddenly, violent, chaotic, and without pattern. He attacked young women, elderly couples, children, anyone unlucky enough to be in his path. This randomness made him one of the most feared killers in American history. His psychological drivers were clear: power through terror. Ramirez didn't just kill. He enjoyed the fear he caused. The trembling voices, the pleading, the helplessness, these were his trophies. Impulse over planning. He didn't stalk victims for weeks. He chose homes at random. He was driven by the thrill of unpredictability. Satanic identity. He believed the devil protected him. This belief removed fear, guilt, limits. It gave him permission to unleash every suppressed fantasy. Trauma reenactment. He repeated the themes taught by Miguel: power, humiliation, dominance, violence. Every crime was a distorted echo of childhood lessons. The psychological breakdown, what lived inside him. Experts describe Ramirez as a combination of narcissistic traits. He viewed himself as superior, chosen, untouchable. Antisocial personality disorder. No empathy, no remorse, repeated criminal behavior, manipulation, impulsive violence, sexual sadism, pain, excitement, control, satisfaction, paranoid and psychotic elements, drug abuse, plus trauma, intensified hallucinations, and satanic delusions. He was not a split personality. He was a unified identity built entirely around violence, power, and fear. Ramirez once said, "I am beyond good and evil." This wasn't a metaphor. It was his worldview. Conclusion. Richard Ramirez didn't hide his darkness. He embraced it. He nurtured it. He let it consume him. He wasn't a killer who lived two lives. He lived one life, entirely in shadow. His story is a reminder that evil doesn't always disguise itself. Sometimes it walks in the open. Sometimes it smiles back at you from across a courtroom. Sometimes it tells you it feels no fear and means it. And now the question for you. What is more terrifying? A killer who hides behind a mask, or a killer who doesn't need one?